Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, and I'm joined by...
I'm James.
And I'm Callum.
And tonight, look, as I said right before we went live, load up on the DMT and jump in the tank, boys. It's getting trippy tonight. We are talking Possessor, the new Cronenberg, Cyberpunk.
Cronenberg Jr.
Cronenberg Jr.
A Cronenberg.
A Cronenberg.
Not the Cronenberg.
No, not the Cronenberg. We're talking a Cronenberg.
The new Cronenberg.
The new Cronenberg. It's just as good.
Yeah? Oh, yeah. We'll talk about it.
Cyberpunk.
Yep. 2077.
2077. Not the genre in general.
Yeah. Not the genre and not the 2020 tabletop. Although we'll talk about that.
We're also going to briefly mention Matrix 4 leaks, rumors, whatever's going on
Title
there,
leak,
and Sandman casting.
Yep.
But first, I think James has some sort of mini housekeeping.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say, because I was uncertain as to how I'd be, obviously I'd already said to listeners I'd be late to most episodes. I wouldn't be on every episode, but some stuff's been happening at work, so just a heads up, I might not be on the next few episodes for the next month or so. I have to figure some stuff out at work, and then once I do that, then we can organize more of a schedule for me to appear on the show more often. But yeah, just the next month is going to be really hectic at work, so I might just sit those few episodes out, but we'll see. Everything could change at the drop of a hat. I could be saying this and then next week I'm back on again, or
so what you're
whatever.
saying is we need to engineer another coronavirus outbreak to force you to work from home so you can come on the show.
Yeah. Or you have to if you have the ability to engineer that, you can
I can just engineer us all some money so we don't have to work anymore.
Oh yeah, that you could sell the virus to the highest bidder, and just then we don't have to work at all. Or you could, depending, now we're getting it. You said at the start of the show we're getting into it already, and we haven't even finished the housekeeping. Yeah, but it's going to be really hectic. I'm not sure. I probably won't be on a few episodes, but we'll see. It will be different. Thanks to Nathan for. He's been editing the episodes and uploading to social media. So thanks, Nathan, for that. And yeah, from now on, it's just going to be a bit more loosey-goosey.
Got to play it by ear.
That's
exactly,
it. That's fine.
Exactly, yeah.
We're I've lost the word.
We're still getting back into the swing of
resilient.
things.
We are resilient.
Resilient.
But yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about interesting pop culture news at Tuesday.
Yes.
At the Tuesday Review, I should say. Jeez.
Alrighty. So I guess we'll start with Sandman casting.
Yeah.
Or do you want to briefly talk about Matrix first?
I'll do Matrix because it's probably shorter.
Yeah.
It's only a quick
Well,
bit of news.
allegedly from an Instagram post from some makeup artist or hairstylist on the
Who
Instagram.
worked
I think
on
it's
the production.
wardrobe.
Someone who worked behind the scenes on
Yeah.
the production.
They posted a picture of what looked like a sort of a trench coat
Yeah, and there was a gift baskety thing.
and a tag
So
that said, "Thank you for working during these COVID
Hard times, yeah.
and it had the Matrix Resurrections listed as the movie's official title, which is also it's exciting, I guess, but it's also not really a surprise.
I mean, we knew it was going to reboot.
It fits the scheme.
Yeah, rebooted was the
Reloaded.
Although I'm still disappointed it's not called the Matrix Rebooted
Yeah.
because
but that's what we're saying.
Rebooted.
When they first announced it, we're like, well, it has to be called Rebooted.
Yeah, I mean, it
obviously.
fits the scheme, right? You had Reloaded, you had
Revolutions.
Yeah.
I think because it's Resurrections, the fourth movie, apparently, which is plural, which I guess they're trying to do
Trinity.
Revolutions.
Yeah.
Is plural because there was multiple throughout the history of the timeline, and then Resurrections because there's more than one character is coming back, I guess.
It'd have to be.
The rumor is
it's suitable. It's suitable and suitably generic.
Yeah, the rumor was
fine.
it was two key characters who passed away in the original trilogy are going to return.
Yeah, well, we already know.
I mean,
both Trinity and Neo both died, and both of them are in the new movie. So
one of the actresses from the original film, I'll find her name. She played Cass. Was it Dozer's wife, maybe? Yeah, widow of Dozer. She expressed her frustration about being apparently, from her knowledge, one of the many characters that are still alive in the Matrix canon.
Yeah.
That weren't invited back.
Well, I know we talked about this probably a year ago or more when they announced that like the fact that Lawrence Fishburne still hasn't been announced that he's in it, and Morpheus still hasn't been announced in it, that for me is like
they can spin that narratively as like the
Now-
search for Morpheus, but
like
Gina
now,
Torres is her name.
if they, Gina Torres, if they like, I think we're like, I'm repeating myself like I always do, but if they manage to keep Morpheus being in the movie a secret in this day and age of like
Amazing,
online rumors, that would be amazing.
I feel like
I would get up in the cinema and cheer.
I feel like if any franchise could do it, it could be The Matrix.
Yeah.
There is a lot of secrecy.
But it might just be a case of they didn't want to put Morpheus in, or Lawrence Fishburne didn't want to do it, or whatever the case may be, and so whatever. But that's just worrying for me.
We'll see, yeah.
Honestly, like the closer we get to the movie actually existing,
the less good you feel about it.
yeah, exactly. Like I remember when they first announced that, we were all like, we had a huge discussion about it. We're like, wow, they have all these.
At least it'll be on HBO Max.
Well, overseas it will, but as we discussed,
I mean, for those of us who take
we'll
frequent trips to America,
we'll
may have
put on our sunglasses and do some
we
Hacker
may
Man.
have access to HBO Max somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe somehow.
But anyway,
We'll jack in and
we'll do what we have to do. Anyway,
avoid the agents.
avoid the agents at all costs. Look, we'll see. I just think it's interesting and possibly worrying that apparently quite a few allegedly characters that weren't necessarily minor weren't invited.
It
back.
really depends, what the story's going to be. I don't think they can pull it off, honestly, but.
Yeah.
Fingers
we'll
crossed.
see. Especially considering only one of the Wachowskis is involved.
Yeah.
Whereas the original trilogy was very much a both Wachowski situation.
We've talked about it before. Whereas like both of them doesn't guarantee quality or success. So
were both of the Wachowskis involved in Sense8 or just one?
I think both of them were. Yeah.
Because I know only one directed it.
Yeah, Lana, who's doing Matrix 4. And who I think she had more of a
leading role
in Sense8. Yeah.
What about Jupiter Ascending?
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's like, well, that's my point. Is that both Wachowskis being involved doesn't mean anything, because you got Speed Racer, which I know has a cult following now, but I hate that movie, and Jupiter Ascending, which sucked.
I know they're actually a mixed bag.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, it's interesting that they got to do those crazy over the top movies. But they didn't work out.
Yeah.
But I mean, Sense8 was really good, and that was a
season 2 was really good. Yeah.
Step in the right direction, I think.
Season 2 and the movie were really good
in terms of character and stuff, at least.
Yeah, very interesting. Experimental.
Like action, it really comes down to CGI. Like if they over CGI it, they did with
don't they have
Jupiter Ascending and.
I'm not sure. Was it just a request by the guys who did John Wick, or is the
they got the same guys back? Yeah,
yeah. So
the stunt guys from the original movies are coming back,
that'll be good at least.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, look, we'll bring our listeners all the information when we have it.
Yeah,
I'm sure more information will be forthcoming the closer we get.
Yeah. Moving on to Sandman casting,
which is something we talked about briefly on the show a long time ago.
I think we talked about more than once. Ages ago.
Yeah, because this has been
an ongoing.
It was announced to be a thing that would eventually happen a long time ago, but these things, of course, move very slowly.
Yeah,
especially when it's like the pre-production stages, pre-production stages where Neil Gaiman or whoever said it could have been Netflix and announced it first.
Yeah,
but they were like, we're doing it. But then that's just an announcement. So between then and now, there's been a long road.
Yeah.
And this also has a connection to Keanu Reeves. So 3 out of 4 of our subjects tonight are related to Keanu Reeves.
That's true.
I mean, more things should be related to Keanu Reeves.
See, I'm not even joking. I was looking for links to Keanu Reeves to Possessor last night, and I couldn't find any. And I was a little disappointed because it could have been the Keanu show.
Well, they're both cyberpunk.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find one.
We'll find one.
If not, we'll manufacture one.
Yeah.
But what was Sandman's connection to Keanu?
So,
Constantine.
Yeah, Constantine. And technically, his movie is canon. Technically.
Oh, not in this universe.
No,
they're separate. They'll be separate universes.
Yeah, no. When Sandman was published, they were in the same universe.
No. The Keanu movie is its own.
Yeah, I'm talking about the comics.
There was some controversy in which there was a novel. I believe it was a novel written, and that was the English Constantine has a brief in this novel has a brief encounter with the American Constantine, but as far as I'm aware, that is not Vertigo or DC canon. That's like a standalone.
That's disappointing
thing.
But that's kind of interesting though. There's like they both exist in like different.
Yeah, in one kind of, I guess, in one contained universe. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but yeah, the movie Constantine doesn't connect to the series Sandman.
No, not the Netflix series. No. But yeah, just Sandman in general, he can.
Yeah.
So we're very happy to finally announce, at least to our
casting
listeners, we finally have some news. Yeah, there's a big casting announcement.
I'm sure we talked like a year or more ago when like
who we wanted,
like who's gonna.
So some quick background into this project, I guess you would call it, because it's still very early, I'm sure.
Yeah.
American Gods came out, and Neil Gaiman said that was actually a test run for the Sandman because he wanted to prove that he had the chops and the drive to actually get things done.
Yeah.
And of course,
and then he did Good
Omens, which was a runaway success.
Yeah.
Not only commercially but culturally as well.
Yeah, and he was more involved with that as well.
Yeah, that's right. So you could argue, and I think you have a good case to argue, that Good Omens was more successful than American Gods in terms of the TV run.
Massively.
In terms of an adaptation, probably, yeah.
Because American Gods, while it was well received, and season 1, of course, was...
Yeah, but it shit the bed.
A work of art.
Season 2.
Good Omens was kind of a good cohesive work.
Yeah. I mean, it helped that as a mini-series.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, I think he was definitely working towards the, I don't know, passion project or magnum opus or whatever is the which is of
Sandman.
course bringing his comic Sandman to the big screen.
The big screen.
I'm pretty sure since the 90s they've been trying to make a Sandman movie.
Yeah, thank God they didn't.
Yeah.
Look, just on the basis of the subject matter, it must be hard to adapt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which is why I'm really worried. Like, I'm really worried that they can't pull it off.
So for listeners who aren't aware of what the Sandman is, it was a comic published in the 90s under the Vertigo line. And it's essentially an anthology series, which has recurring characters, recurring themes, which revolve around the god of dreaming, Morpheus, who's like the god of...
Another Matrix connection.
The god of the dreaming world. You know, he's in charge of ensuring the safety and I guess the day-to-day running of imagination and dreams and stuff like that. And so every arc, if you will, has a different story, different characters, different bad guys.
It's like a supernatural world.
You know, in some issues, Morpheus doesn't even feature. It's just a fantasy story or whatever.
Yeah, and then there's like spin-off volumes about other completely unrelated characters. Yeah, and then Constantine shows up.
And it was a big hipster success story. You know, in Vertigo, it was like one of the big comics that put Vertigo on the map.
Yeah, and it's Neil Gaiman's like biggest thing.
Yeah, it's like his most... Yeah, it's his most influential pop culture contribution.
Yeah, it's like you think Neil Gaiman, you think Sandman.
Yeah, if you're a comic book guy, absolutely. Yeah. And it had about 75 or so issues, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. And so the idea was, according to Neil Gaiman, it was pretty much going to be the whole Sandman story told in a TV show, which is a massive undertaking.
Which, that's...
now, let alone to talk about how faithful is the adaptation going to be? The idea that you're going to have roughly 70 episodes.
Well,
of course, some might be condensed.
We talked about it like over a year ago when it's like because each volume, when they collected all the issues, it's like there's about 10 volumes. So I doubt they're going to do 10 seasons. They might do 5, 6 at the most.
I think initially Neil wanted
huge runaway.
I think initially Neil said he wanted it to be faithful. Like issue, but like one episode is like an issue.
But there's always got to be compromises made, unless
there's already been compromises. There's already kind of been compromises made.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing is like it's never going to be a one-to-one adaptation, and he's already said, this is the first time this news has been said, is that the original comic was set in the 80s, obviously when it was the late 80s when it was first published, and then the 90s. And then this version of the TV show takes place in the
modern
2020s. But the timeline of Morpheus being in captivity is the same, like when he first got captured.
It's like
So it's like picking up the story and just moving it
shifting.
Which
like
is fine.
30 years down the line.
Which is
makes
fine,
sense. Because to make a period piece on top of a supernatural
more
show,
expensive.
Don't bother.
Yeah.
Yeah, why bother?
The
I
cost
mean,
would the cost would skyrocket.
Personally, I would
You
love
like
it to
the
be a
80s.
period because you need the hair. Like Sandman's all about the hair.
Yeah.
All like you.
But then again, they're ethereal creatures, right? They can still have the hair.
And that's the other thing. This is something we probably talked about in one of the older episodes, especially Callum and I. Like, they can change their appearance willy-nilly.
Well, people see them differently. So if you come from a different culture, Morpheus has a different appearance to you.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like the idea of a thought form, which is like a something that lives outside of a human being, but kind of comes from them.
Yeah.
It's a really simplistic, bad explanation. But that's essentially that's essentially what the Endless kind of are.
Yeah.
They're like in between thought forms and gods.
Yeah.
And so like Morpheus will appear.
Everyone has their different interpretation of.
So in the 80s, of course, they all had the 80s hair and they all looked like they belonged in the 80s. But to Martian Manhunter in the comics, he looks like a completely alien concept.
Yeah.
And that's what's really interesting. So it does,
and
I mean, the way they look has no bearing on the
Also,
Netflix show, really.
Yeah. Also, they could probably do flashbacks throughout because they're endless beings, right? Like, so they could do throughout time.
Yeah.
Anytime they want, they could be like, here's a flashback to the 1800s, and this is what they look like then.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Because I know they were already casting for William Shakespeare because he has a few appearances in the comics. And Neil Gaiman confirmed that they're looking to cast a Shakespeare.
Nice.
So we will get some throwbacks.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting to see them in like the old like Baroque kind of looking clothes. That'd be cool.
But, so Tom Sturridge is playing Dream.
Yeah, which is...
And he looks like Neil Gaiman already.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, Dream himself, or Morpheus himself, was always the hardest casting. Like, to get that right, I remember years and years ago, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was touted as the big movie version. And I'm like, I would have been happy with that. But it's like...
I reckon this guy's perfect.
This guy, like, I think I've seen a couple of movies he's in, but I don't really recognize or remember. Like, it's good that they got a sort of unknown-ish actor.
They didn't get a AAA lister.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess because they're doing a series, they don't have to do that. If they're doing a movie, they probably would have had to get someone who was a bit of a name. But he's as soon as we saw the picture, we're like, that guy looks perfect.
He looks like Neil Gaiman 40 years ago.
Sort of, yeah.
And
which is probably as intended.
And that wasn't on purpose either, by the way, his similarity to Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
Because they'd never met each other. All the people who
Neil
wrote...
Gaiman's just kind of gothy looking anyway.
Yeah.
So...
When they wrote the original comic, they never actually met each other.
Yeah.
So he came up with the person who did the original penciling came up with the idea on his own, I think, and it just happened to have similarities.
Yeah.
So everyone says that Morpheus is supposed to be Neil Gaiman, but it was a complete accident. It was a happy accident.
I don't think it was on purpose.
No,
I think
but
it's just
that
kind
like
of
the fact that he looks like Neil
that
Gaiman.
gothy era where, like, because they all kind of look like that. Yeah, but it's good casting. I'm be interested to see how he does.
I'm sorry if I butcher the name. Vivian Achiampong is playing Lucienne, librarian of dreaming.
Yeah,
that's a gender flip. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
but
I think Neil Gaiman also said. He just said when he's moving the timeline from the 80s to now, obviously coming with that will obviously be a more sensible
cultural changes.
Yeah, cultural changes and more sensitive look at certain things, and so.
But
his books were always ahead of the times
the time. Yeah,
and
that's
very
right.
Progressive. He's a very progressive writer anyway.
Yeah, but it's interesting because this is one of those things where. Swapping sexualities, genders, races, it doesn't actually matter that much to the story because all the characters in Sandman are kind of ethereal anyway.
Supernatural,
yeah. So it's not a huge.
I think in the comic books even gender doesn't really matter because they're just appearing as if like in human form when in reality they're not really of any one age or gender. Or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you live, they live. The librarian is like I can't remember what their origin story. Yeah, but it's like they live in this kind of this supernatural environment anyway. So it
doesn't matter.
It makes perfect sense that, like you said, that they would update certain characters. That so they've casted Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer.
Yeah,
which the gender swap I don't mind, but I just personally feel like. It's a wasted opportunity because they're playing it so safe. When you look at what they did with Constantine, with the angel in Constantine, it's a similar feel.
Yeah, like because
that's a swap I don't agree with.
The Satan in the Sandman comic books was very androgynous.
Yeah,
he's very Bowie-like.
Yeah,
So to cast someone androgynous or whatever, that makes sense. But then they made the Constantine movie with the angel. Was it Gabriel?
I believe so.
With Tilda Swinton,
which was good. That was actually good. Like I enjoyed that performance.
That was cool. Yeah,
but I feel like they're just treading
it
already.
It does feel a little bit like that.
They're just treading same ground.
But you also can't avoid it if the character's kind of androgynous.
Yeah, but they could have just casted more appropriately to the source material if they're going to do something like that.
Yeah, someone more Bowie-esque.
Yeah, like.
But I'll be interested to see how Gwendoline Christie does because
I'm sure she'll do fine.
Because like I mean, like Phasma sucked. Could have been a cool character. Sucked. Lady Brienne was cool, and then the show destroyed her, and that sucked.
The problem is how well is she going to be able to pull off elegance?
Fine.
You reckon?
No, but for me, it's not even. It's like I'm sure she'll do fine. I'm sure I'll enjoy.
Yeah, no, she'll be great.
Like I said, I just feel like it's a wasted casting.
Yeah.
In that sense, like they could have found someone more interesting for the role.
What I find interesting about her as well is like she's very tall.
Yeah.
So like for Satan. Like every devil movie I can think of, like the devil's just like normal height.
Yeah, and
like I'd like to see a version of the devil who's very imposing physically.
I think
that's
usually in movies like Satan's supposed to be sort of almost
seductive.
Inviting, seducting, lethal, like.
But like she can do that quality as well.
Yeah.
But then she's also obviously physically imposing.
Someone like her, I would have cast as say Fate. Or one of the other characters.
She's interesting enough that you could cast her as any of the
endless. Yeah. Like, so I think that's why I said it's a waste of casting because there's so many other characters in the saga who I think she could have brought a more interesting take to. Yeah. Whereas, but I mean, we'll see, right? I mean,
no, I think she'll be fine. Yeah.
It's just my initial disappointment in the casting is it's very samey. We've already seen it.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in is Charles Dance. As
he's always good.
Roderick Burgess, charlatan and magician. Now, I haven't read the comics.
Yeah.
Is he anyway similar to the character in the comics? Like an older man?
So so the character I'm assuming they're casting is the initial is the initial magician Burgess who captures Dream.
Yeah, and imprisons him for like 100 years or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I mean, James says I don't know a lot about his biography. James says he's done a lot of smaller TV roles
Charles Dance.
before.
Charles Dance is an amazing actor.
Game of Thrones.
I'm talking about. I don't know about the rest of his. Film history.
Because you were worried like he's a big actor and they're going to waste him on a small role. But as I said to you, he's done heaps of roles. I'm sure whether this is small or not, and it's an important role.
Yeah.
Like it's not a big role, but it's important.
I find it interesting though. Like they should have just put Burgess in there. Instead, they put Charlotte and a magician. I'm like,
no, each casting thing has a descriptor, so that's why they put that.
I see. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So, but anyway, like his amazing choice, and like I said to you the other day, like they can always be expanding his role to be more of a villain overall in the first season, and we also don't know exactly how they're going to adapt the first sort of run of.
Well, I mean, there's so many characters who haven't been officially cast yet.
Oh yeah.
Another interesting choice I think will pay off is Azim Chaudhry and Sanjeev Bhaskar as Cain and Abel.
Sanjeev Bhaskar is awesome. Yeah. Thank you. And my favorite EastEnders boy.
But so they make a recurring. I'm pretty sure
they're the Kumars. Yeah, the Kumars at number.
I believe so.
40.
Yeah, and he was a long-time alum of EastEnders.
Yeah.
I watched for decades.
I'm pretty sure Cain and Abel have like a recurring. Appearance in the comics as well.
Yeah, it's like their whole gag is like Cain keeps killing Abel over and over again or something.
Yeah, so like they'll have an interaction.
It's
or
good.
whatever.
It's good casting those two guys who are both funny, and also like
because I can imagine like I haven't read the comics, but like almost like a comedy sort of.
Yeah, I feel like
trapped in a loop.
It's a good sort of through like because this can like the show and the comic book can probably be super serious and like goth and like. And then these guys running through it.
And there's always a situation that'll really annoy Cain, and then bam.
Yeah, no, that was a good choice.
I enjoyed that choice. The other, in my opinion, massive casting decision that I really think is going to be excellent is Boyd Holbrook as the Corinthian, who's like a nightmare kind of serial killer character.
Yeah.
And if he's the one I'm thinking of, he actually has like blades for eyes or something.
He wears sunglasses, and when he takes them off, his eyes, they're like, I think they're like fangs or like mouths or something.
But the casting is tight.
Yeah.
Absolutely tight.
Yeah.
I was so happy when I saw that. I was like, that's excellent casting.
Yeah, that was a good choice.
I think he'll play a very malevolent bad guy. I'm kind of keen for that.
Yeah, scumbag villain.
But yeah, none of the other endless have been cast. Death, one of the most important characters, hasn't been cast.
Other than Dream, Death is the most hard casting. They're gonna have a hard time.
I also think Neil Gaiman wanted to put some info out there.
Yeah, I think he's probably been sitting on it. I know that
he did a poll.
Yeah,
people harass him all the time.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Fine, here's some stuff." On Twitter, and it's like,
well, like we said a bit before, like it's still early days, and with COVID, there probably won't be another couple of years till that actually comes out.
But I'm going to be seeing who they choose to play Death, because it's going to be controversial. If they play too far afield, I don't think they will, just because of how how appropriate the casting of to the source, I should say, it was. Dream's casting. So I think that if maybe the core Endless, they'll try and have a similarity to the source material.
Maybe, yeah.
Which kind of makes sense.
It depends.
But it doesn't really matter as long as they get as long as the costume design.
We talked about this like ages ago, where I was like the goth thing is important, and the hair is important to me just because I like that aesthetic. But like Death to me is like that personifies that, like the goth girl kind of.
So as long as the costume design's fine, I don't think it really matters.
Which I don't know. Can you translate that to 2020?
Yeah,
when not be cringy.
No. I think it'll be fine.
It can still
they
work.
Can get away with it.
Go to an emo club in the city. It's fine.
I'm wondering if they're going to have the actual pale white skin. Like, will Morpheus have the pale white skin? Because I know that in the original run they did, but then in some of they retouched it in some of the republications to make more of a pink. She had like Death had like a pinkier skin.
Yeah.
I'm like, I kind of like the idea that they're like black and white.
Yeah,
I kind of like that.
It'll be good aesthetic show, like a good aesthetic move for the show, if to have them just like in white and makeup, like to separate them from.
Yeah, because that's what made them out. So they kind of Death
they stand
and
out.
Dream kind of stood out because they were these stark colors against the colorful backdrop.
I think, like, I was thinking about this the other day. I was watching just some show on HBO or whatever it was.
It was Riverdale.
And
join in, admit it.
You caught me. No, but like, because you know how over the last 10 years, streaming shows and premium cable shows, they're like big budget. They're like movies now. They're as good as movies. They look great. But now they're starting to all look samey. Like all the Netflix shows start to look the same. And I feel like Sandman is the one show that can't look the same as all the other shows. It has to have a really distinctive visual style.
Especially when you consider some of the stuff in the comics was really experimental.
Yeah. And the art in the comic books is so unique and amazing. And like, they don't have to match that. They just have to come up with their own unique visual style. They have a creative
visual feel.
It can't, like, I'm sorry to say it, and I know it's not fair, but it can't just look good. No, it has to look
distinctive,
really distinctive. Yeah. Like I was thinking, like Hannibal was a commercial television station show, and that show had crazy, amazing visuals. That
apparently, I was reading about Hannibal the other day, it wasn't even that expensive a show.
Yeah, no, but
it looked distinctive.
I remember like 3 or 4 years ago when I first started the Man vs. Movies show, and like I was watching Channel Zero, the anthology horror series, and that was a really low budget show, but it looked really nice. And the creator said something that stuck with me, is that good lighting costs the same as bad lighting.
Yeah,
so
I've
it's
heard
like
that before,
it's like, you know, if it won't cost a whole heap more. I mean, obviously, like,
I know what you mean. Yeah, putting thought into set design isn't going to cost. Yeah, it doesn't cost anything. It's just
if you've got a good creative team behind it who knows what they're doing,
you know, framing and things like that. It doesn't cost extra.
Yeah, it can't just look like all the other shows that look amazing. They all look amazing now. All shows look amazing now.
But when everything looks amazing, everything looks standard.
Let's just hope that Netflix realize what they've got.
I think they know. I think that's why it's taken so long. It's not one of those things they just rushed out. It's like,
I have a feeling that this is they're gonna spend a bit more money.
I'm hoping that they treat it like Stranger Things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I want to see posters for it.
Yeah,
in places.
and I think like this is the perfect time for a show like this to come out. Now that fantasy is like more mainstream, or at least more popular with most people, and a lot of streaming companies and TV networks and whatever cable channels are doing fantasy stuff and sci-fi stuff.
Thanks, Game of Thrones.
Yeah. You tanked it at the end, but at least you popularized it.
You affected the culture.
Yeah.
And now we're going to talk about Possessor.
Yep.
The new Cronenberg
we're going to talk about Possessor first? Okay.
Okay, we can talk about Cyberpunk first.
No, let's talk about Possessor.
I just picked one.
Yeah.
Brandon Simon.
Brandon
Cronenberg,
son of director David Cronenberg. We talked about, I think on one of our quarantine Zoom episodes, about how his new movie Possessor was coming out, and how the apple didn't fall far from the tree when it came to directing
the deformed tree.
Yeah, body horror and sci-fi kind of high concept movies.
Yeah, he definitely inherited those genes.
Yeah, which I mean, it's kind of. I'm sure it's hard for him to always be compared to his dad when he's trying to do his own thing, but it is a very similar.
That being said, he's a talented guy, so I think that it'll be fine. Yeah. I think that people, by the end of his career, people might be comparing the older Cronenberg movies to Brandon. You know what I mean?
Well, it's going to head that way because in a recent interview, Viggo Mortensen said that he's working with David Cronenberg on
a new
movie that goes back to Cronenberg's roots.
Oh, that's interesting.
That would be interesting.
Like it's going to be
it's interesting. Nice. Obviously, I'd like to be a fly on the wall, but I think that his son's enthusiasm seems to have kindled something in him because I know that he's got a whole bunch of stuff going on now. All of a sudden, I'm like, I wonder if him being like, oh hey Brandon, what are you doing? He's like, oh I can't talk. I'm doing we're looking for locations. I don't know if he was like, oh I'm just sitting at home.
Was it family jealousy?
Maybe.
Was David was like, how dare you make these movies? I'll show you what body horror is.
Or maybe he just he thought body horror, like he wasn't interested in body horror because he did that for so long.
And then he saw
and he moved on, and then now he's like, oh, it's time to come back.
I think it's just that feeling of he's always done things, but he's kind of he's like a slower kind of guy. He doesn't release a movie a year,
Yeah.
So I think that what happened was it's possible that his son started doing stuff, and then he kind of got into it. He kind of got back into the feel.
Potentially, yeah.
If Brandon was like, oh yeah, I'm writing a script, and then we're gonna go and do this and that, David was probably like, I remember that. You know what I mean?
Damn young whippersnappers.
No, but like, he was probably sitting there thinking, it was fun. I'd like to go revisit
maybe.
And let's be real, David was probably at least on set and helping
some of the
Brandon.
time.
Oh, I don't think so.
No?
As far as I know, Brandon doesn't talk to his dad about his movies.
Oh, really?
Like, never mind,
I suppose
this ties into my point of like, I'm sure Brandon is sick of being compared to his dad, even though he's making very similar stuff to his dad's older movies. As far as I know, he doesn't go to his dad for advice.
No, I understand. Well,
obviously, he grew up with his dad, so he learned a lot. But he doesn't like say, "Hey, Dad, how do you do this body horror stuff?"
Yeah, he probably wants to be his own man.
Exactly, and he does have his own style of, like, it's obviously again similar, but he's doing. And I'll be interested to see where he goes after Possessor, because I watched his first movie, Antiviral, which I really liked, and then I watched Possessor, and like they're both. Neither of them are like perfect or like really wowed me, but both of them were really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of in the same way, like we talked about this once a while ago where, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, the director's first few films probably weren't that great. And then they got better and better, and then they made some really bangers, and then they got a bit... Like, and now it's like the director's first film has to be amazing, otherwise they just never do anything again.
Because we're
a lot of pressure.
We're in the IT age, so it's like people have all this knowledge and they're expected to be perfect from the get go.
Yeah, and
whereas back in the days, you were saying 60 years ago, 70 years ago,
you're
making a movie. Everyone was making a movie for the first time.
To
a certain extent.
But but even the people who came later, like Scorsese's first couple of movies, it's like you can see him working towards something. Like he didn't start with Raging Bull. He didn't start with Goodfellas. But now, in this day and age, it's like everyone expects you to start with your masterpiece. and then keep living up to that for your whole career, which is just
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
There's no room to work
exactly.
it out.
Which I think Brandon Cronenberg's really interesting because his first 2 movies I really like them, but they show promise, but they're not perfect. And I feel like the more he does, the better he'll get, until hopefully the market is so screwed up now and the studios don't make risky films anymore. But I'm hoping eventually he gets to make something really incredible.
We get the Brandon Cronenberg Videodrome.
Yeah, the Videodrome or the Fly. It was like something really like, bam, like, holy crap, this guy's amazing.
I can't believe I saw that,
There is a special place in my heart for Videodrome, even though it has James Woods.
Long live the new Flesh.
Oh, yeah, you have. That's one of the cases of separate the art and the artist thing, where you're like, he's a character in the movie. He's not James Woods, the MAGA psycho guy. Which you have to do for a lot of people now. It's really disappointing. You have to, like, every movie with Kevin Spacey, you're just like, that's not Kevin Spacey, that's the character he's playing.
Every time you're watching Hercules on the TV and Kevin Sorbo comes
Kevin Sorbo, you dickhead, man.
I love Lucy Lawless doesn't put up with it. She Instagrams him back being
Lucy Lawless is so badass in real life and on TV.
Yeah, she's just like, stop it. I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, Possessor. Possessor involves essentially assassins, right? They're contracted out and they have to kill people. But the method of doing that is they essentially hijack another person's consciousness and use that person to murder someone.
They quote unquote possess someone close to the victim,
and I believe it's got through like microchips.
It's
or
like
something.
like some sort of chip. In the back of the head.
It's not magic. They chip them and then they use a
like a receiver
device, like you sit in it and you.
It's like a medical machine.
Yeah, you jack yourself in and then you transmit your consciousness into that person, and then you can use that person as a disposable assassin.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about this film is not so much the assassin part, which is still really cool.
Yeah.
And I like all the gore and it doesn't shy away from anything.
It's very extreme.
But the interesting thing is kind of the war of consciousnesses as the
the
victim essentially tries to fight back against the assassin.
I like that sort of not metaphysical, but like that kind of that almost discussion on like where does one mind begin and another mind end. If I take over the consciousness of someone else, I'm using their brain chemistry.
What happens to their mind?
I mean that's what the movie's about. Is the main character? I can't remember the character's name. Andrea Riseborough's character. She's like this hotshot assassin. Like the company she works for is like she's they're like.
Tassia Voss.
Tassia, yeah.
And she's also very damaged.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is Voss is like their top assassin.
Yeah.
And the movie starts where she starts slipping. Like, it's like the murder or whatever is starting to get to her or something.
It takes a toll. So the more you do it, every time you be someone else and you kill people.
You lose a part of yourself.
Yeah, it kind of, you take psychological damage, psychic damage to yourself. So you start to...
Yeah, and she kind of... starts
it's almost disassociation.
Yeah, actually, that's
exactly.
a good
and
way
she starts
like
feeling more distant from her family, and like she can't connect to her son
because she spends so much time not being herself.
Yeah, and also the violence of it is so it's so extreme in the movie. Almost you could argue too extreme at times.
Like she has, let's say she's very well practiced in killing herself.
Yeah, but it's like the gore is like so over the top extreme that it becomes like old Italian horror movie, like cheesy almost. And it's like it might have been more effective if it was more realistic and more blunt. But either way, it does the same thing, which is show you that if you are doing a violent thing over and over again, you kind of just become desensitized to it.
It's just another.
Or you start to enjoy it, which is where the movie starts to hint at, which I don't want to spoil. But like, it starts to go in that direction of like, if you kill people so many times, like, and I also like the movie is just interesting. The questions it raises, like, does she start to enjoy it, or is she just losing herself?
I think she's so
or is
damaged.
she being manipulated by Jennifer Jason Leigh's character?
I don't think it's the fact that she enjoys it. I feel like it's the fact that she can only feel anything from extremes.
It becomes her purpose. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that's my view of it is her family. They're just humans, are essentially just flesh. You know what I mean? Like when you kill people for a living, it's just cattle. So her you
don't see them as human.
Yeah, her view, like, she's only happy when she's at work. She wants to immediately start the next task. Let's get it going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, what I find interesting is apparently they tried to limit their use of CG. So there's a lot of interesting effects which happen in camera.
Yeah.
Which apparently Brandon was saying they had to put some real effort into interesting techniques to get visuals in the camera.
I love the lo-fi-ness of this movie.
Yeah.
Like almost everything in the movie, even something you'd think they just do that CGI real quick or whatever. It's like they really strove to. Is strove a word? They really strive
more or less,
to do it in camera
practically as possible. Yeah. There was a scene where there's like a battle of wills.
Yeah.
And there's like some interesting colors on the screen.
Yeah, like
effects, and that was done in camera.
Yeah, instead of just post production changing the color, it's like they just use gels on the lenses and stuff like that.
And there was an intimacy scene and
that was quite
that was
interesting.
done in camera.
And like the bit where she walks into the foyer of that building and there's like a fountain that's like moving backwards or the water's kind of stopped. Every other movie would just do that digitally, but they figured out a way where if you run the water through a pipe that's being vibrated by a subwoofer and you do it at the right frequency, the water kind of just stops in the air, like it looks like it's frozen.
Yeah.
Like they did cool little lo-fi things. Like they used, fishing stuff on fishing wire to float around, like all cool little things.
Yeah, because of course, if you listen to this show before, you know how much we have a complicated feeling about CGI.
Oh yeah,
so it's nice.
If you can do it in camera, do it in camera, and I like that they did that.
It's nice that they pulled out all the stops.
Yeah,
and it shows.
And especially because the movie was pretty low budget, I'd say.
Yeah.
When you look at it, it looks really nice. But you can tell, like, it's not a big budget movie.
No.
And so they probably had to put a lot of effort.
This shows that it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't.
And that's what's so refreshing.
I'm pretty sure we've talked about it before. Like, sometimes movies just cost too much money. You don't need to spend that much money on a movie, and it's going to end up looking like crap. That's sometimes,
like, Hollywood gets a bad reputation for cooking the books.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, why does a movie have to cost that much?
Yeah.
We all know that there's not embezzlement, but there's tax stuff going on.
Yeah, but not even with that, it's just like they spend all this money and they overproduce it.
I mean,
$200 million on marketing.
Do you remember
and then it ends up being a CGI crap anyway.
When we talked about The Irishman, they did a pretty bad job of de-aging Robert De Niro. And there was some guy at home...
Deepfake, yeah.
Yeah, there was some guy at home who deepfaked it, and it looked way better.
They did that with the Luke Skywalker from
and we
Mandalorian
talked about The Irishman. How much did they cost to CGI De Niro's face when they could have done it? Some dude at home did it way cheaper, and it looked more convincing.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend a lot of money
to
get a good...
would have done it for free, Marty.
You don't have to spend all this... You don't have to spend all this money to get a good result, which is what we can see with Possessor.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and one I don't know if it's criticism, but it's like I feel like the movie at times hinted at something bigger, a larger world.
It felt like an expanded universe they were setting it in,
and that was good because obviously they didn't have time or the money to go into that stuff. But sometimes I wished, even with the budget they had, they could have just done a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now, again, that's not what the movie's about. The movie wasn't about the larger implications of the possessing technology. It wasn't about the world as a whole. It does hint at that, but it doesn't really go into it
It's
at
about
all.
Voss losing control.
Yeah, and I know Brandon Cronenberg said he's got so much content from that world that he could make another movie. Which, I don't think they should make a sequel or whatever, but it's like, it definitely feels like they had to cut a lot of stuff because of budget. And I saw an interview and he said that he didn't say that. Like he said, no, I didn't cut anything out. I didn't compromise. But I feel like if he did have a lot of material that
there would have been cuts at the idea level.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's definitely enough meat on those bones that they could make a TV show or a comic book or something.
Honestly, Possessor's the perfect movie to have a comic book.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just a small indie comic book run.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that when you have something so fertile like Possessor, you're gonna have to make concessions at the idea level.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, when he was writing the script, he knew everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He had ideas about how the outside ideas as well, like how it works in different countries, the different factions.
Also, like we should also like we talked about the visuals and the lo-fi and how cool it is, but it's like it's set. It's kind of blink and you miss it, but it's like it's set in like an alternate 2008. So it's like as if at some point in the 20th century, like our timeline and the timeline of Possessor sort of split off, and like the world in Possessor has this kind of lo-fi switches technology, and everyone vapes and it's like and everyone drives old 70s cars and stuff. Like it's like its own kind of contained alternate universe, which is really cool. Which it's a really cool movie, and I'm interested to see what he does next. Yeah. I did see an interview where he's got like two or three movies already lined up, and he's apparently, if I remember correctly, he said he's got funding and like he's gonna make them consecutively. But after COVID, I don't know if that's possible. Like,
I think he's lucky enough that he's a talented enough guy that when the world stabilizes, he will be able to release another film. Yeah. So, I think that he's fine in the sense that we'll see what he's got next up his sleeve. Hopefully, he hasn't been derailed by this. Like, hopefully the people he wanted to work with are still interested. That kind of thing. Yeah. But you can't help it in this this day and age.
I mean, fingers crossed he can get those made, because I'm really interested to see what he's got next, because he's got, really crazy ideas and again, like we always talk about edgy stuff that's not, you don't see in mainstream movies, or
he doesn't make Hollywood films.
Exactly. Yeah. No, not at all. If you've got a weak stomach, stay away from David Cronenberg and Brandon Cronenberg movies. Yeah. God damn. I mean, we'll talk quickly, like we kind of talked about last week, I think, where it's like you couldn't even watch Possessor in Australia. Like I had to import the 4K, which I was going to do anyway, but it's like for people who want to watch it without purchasing the actual 4K and importing it for a
So the company who financed at least part of it was called Neon. And in America, you can just rent it from them. Yeah. Right? You can rent the 4K. It doesn't cost a lot. You're pretty much directly supporting the company. Studio, yeah. And I'm like, cool, I want to pay that. Yeah. Sorry, not allowed. No. Why? Country issues, whatever. But we get a very limited run theatrically here.
Did we?
I think it's coming out at the Nova. I think there's like one screening, but it's maybe in March or something. It came out
last year.
I think it's in March. I believe. I could be wrong.
It's ridiculous.
My point is that's a single showing. That's not a run.
No. My point is like you can't just go to Hoyts and go watch Possessor. You know what I mean?
And you can't.
Or Village.
You can't buy the DVD or Blu-ray here. No. You can't stream it here. You can't rent it here.
It's just an unfortunate one of those many unfortunate things. Yeah. Where you live in Australia, you have to find alternate means to watch it. As soon as it's available to purchase, I'll absolutely be buying it, because I think it's a good film to support. Yeah. Support filmmakers you love, like we've said on the show before. Absolutely support them. Because, especially in Australia, right? If we want things to come out in Australia, we kind of have to use our capital to try and make that happen as far as we can.
This is the problem, is if we can't buy the Australian version because it's not out or it's an inferior version, then we have to import it, and then we're not supporting the local. It's
a tough situation.
Yeah.
But
should we move on? We don't have much time left.
Yeah, go watch it.
Yeah, watch Possessor. It's
if
cool.
you can.
If you can stomach extreme gore.
So, quick provision here. Callum and myself have played Cyberpunk 2077. We've finished it, but we played it on the Xbox Series X, which is the second best way to play the game. Yeah. Now, the game has a troubled history so far, with technical issues and bugs. Yeah, because we'll try not to talk about that so much.
Well, I just want, because we, like a year ago, like we were really excited for it. We were really hyping it up. We were singing CD Projekt's praises about what a great company they were and how they're not like other companies. And of course, 2020 being the worst year ever. Children. Yeah, exactly. It showed that they're a company like all the other companies. They have the same problems as all the other companies. They have the same faults and flaws, and at the end of the day, the game was never going to live up to the hype, and so when it did come out, it just couldn't. It
obtained a mythological status. Yeah, people like, because it was like 10 years or so in since announcement. Yeah. So people always build things up in their heads. and it's never going to match
It's
that.
never going to live up.
It's a video game. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It has rules. It has confines. It has an ending.
Yeah.
Look, realistically, it should just never have come out on
That's how I feel.
PS4.
Their problem, the problem
and
was
Xbox One.
they shouldn't they kept delaying it, and like I understand they had to release it, but they could have waited. They should have just waited another year.
Yeah,
or
like I
6
said, I
months.
personally think that they shouldn't have released it on
but
what was then
the older-
current gen.
Yeah, PS4 and Xbox.
Because
One.
it's one
But
of
the
those things where
problem
you
is-
have
is
to make a
they-
tough decision.
The problem is they started development so long ago, and they promised those versions so long ago that they were kind of stuck with it, which is a problem with a game like
I wouldn't
this.
say they're stuck
Look,
with it. They could always.
They made uncomfortable press statements before. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They delayed it. They pissed people off.
Yeah.
I think that the net loss of their goodwill would have been better for the company if they had said, sorry, current gen consoles just can't do it justice.
Look,
Yeah.
all they
'Cause
would have had to say is our
They could-
vision for the game
I
has
mean,
changed.
they've-
We're now only supporting
yeah.
like
They-
PS5 and Xbox Series. You can get a refund from.
They've been caught telling lies anyway. So if they literally just said, we literally can't get it to work, it's too big.
It's too buggy, yeah. Look, the negative backlash they got from the bugs from current gen was immense. It was basically any other company could have been destroyed from.
Like, I know you guys have had a pretty good experience on the Series X, which is the best way to play it on consoles and the most powerful console to deal with it. But even the PS5 and the Series X has the bugs. Like, not as buggy.
Before Callum gets into it, I'll just quickly say my piece on this because I'm not easier to please. I mean, I am, but Callum had some issues, and I'll let him get to that in a second. But I had next to no issues at all in my entire playthrough. My experience was pretty seamless and cinematic, and I loved it.
Yeah. So,
because I haven't played it, so I'll shut up after I say this. But it's like, I feel like one of the other problems isn't just that the release was buggy and that they shouldn't have released it on the quote unquote current gen consoles. My problem is like, it wasn't the game they promised. They promised too much.
Yeah.
They overpromised and they underdelivered. And unfortunately, it's just they're a smaller team in comparison to other like big studios like Rockstar.
Yeah.
I also feel like people expected Grand Theft Auto.
Exactly, it's not
They never
fair.
said you'd get Grand Theft Auto.
No, I'm just saying like it's not fair to compare them to that.
Yeah.
But also they kind of promised.
They did
huge things that just they couldn't deliver on.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter that the game was whether it was buggy or not doesn't matter. It's at the end of the day, it wasn't the game that we were expecting or that I was expecting.
Look,
and I'm gonna get it eventually, but I'm just gonna wait until it's fixed and
wait for the game of the year edition.
Look, people should never have expected to get what they were told they were going to get. Unfortunately,
but
this is something. If for example, Final Fantasy 15 came out, right?
Yeah.
It was in development for similar to Cyberpunk 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone was like, "Oh, this game sucks." I thought it was fine. The problem with Cyberpunk is that, like I said, they promised so much.
Yeah.
But realistically, if you're any person capable of sufficient critical thinking, no. So let me finish because I've thought about this a lot since all the articles came out. Right. It would take 20 years to make the game that they told people they were going to make. Realistically speaking, a game has to be released.
Yeah.
Tough decisions have to be made. People shouldn't be criticizing the developers, and the developers copped a lot.
It's
the executive failed the company.
That's what I was going to say. Is if they couldn't live up to what they were promising,
don't promise it.
They don't promise it, and they should have made cuts early on.
That's right.
Like you can customize your genitals. Great, that should have been cut
who cares?
After when 6 months in when they realized they weren't.
They have no function in the game anyway.
Yeah, you can't even go to the barber and change your hair color.
Yeah, like they change it to first person only, so the whole character customization doesn't. I mean, it matters, but it's like there are certain things that they promise that it's like
no, that's right.
The executives need it to be cutting.
But realistically. Right, people at home there should have been a general understanding in the community that you're not going to get everything they tell you because unless they were a $1 trillion company, Amazon potentially could have delivered that game with all those promises because they have more money than the Catholic Church.
Yeah, if you spend all the time and money on
with
it,
1,000 developers working 24 hours a day with $1 billion budget, well, fine, you can make those promises.
Yeah,
but that's not what we got.
No.
What I will say is I had plenty of bugs, game crashing bugs. My game just turned the game turned my console off at one point.
Yeah,
I went into a door, console turned off.
Yeah.
So like, the bugs exist even on the Series X.
Yeah.
But what I got was honestly a moving, fun Deus Ex meets Watch Dogs sci-fi game.
Yeah.
I actually loved it a lot. I thought it was worth the money. I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah.
I don't think they should have released it when they did. I think that they should have
waited.
I should have been in the oven for 3 more months at least.
Yeah.
That being said, like I thought the game looked beautiful. A lot of people didn't. And I mentioned this on our friend Alum's show, Sunrise Arcade. There was actually some criticism about the architecture in the game. They think it looks they think it looks flat and like grey and like.
Welcome to the dystopia.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Realistically speaking, it's not all gonna be. It's not all gonna be bright neon lights everywhere. You go into a ghetto, it's gonna look. There's going to be lots of uniform-looking buildings because it is a dystopia.
What am I like? Because it's based on the Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop game, which is very 80s and very like punk and kind of big hair.
It
and
still
leather
looks
jackets.
like that, yeah.
And it's like they were definitely going for that because it's technically a sequel to that. It's set in that world, but they're also trying to modernize it because we're in 2020 or 2021, and I feel like they should have chose one or the other.
I think it's fine.
Because I feel like I didn't like from what I've seen is like I didn't like how the cars are all like old 80s cars. And they just got some
no,
cyber trim.
Some are.
Sci-fi
yeah, there's a lot of modern cars.
That sort of makes sense in the game because there are some neighborhoods that are like modeled around like there are gangs that are modeled around like Latino gangs from 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And they have lowriders and like that's the point.
Another thing to keep in mind is there's only this is obviously not canon, but there's only so many car production facilities in the city, So it's a very Mad Max. Once you leave the city, it's a very Mad Max kind of environment. So the cars they have available, they are going to look kind of samey because a lot of them are old anyway. You see a lot of the cars. There's not a lot of brand new looking cars in the world. Because at the end of the day, it's a dystopian nightmare. You got gangs killing each other everywhere, cars blowing up all the time.
I feel like when you think of like the peak of cyberpunk, world building and dystopian city, you think of Blade Runner. And the cars in that are very 80s, but they're also super futuristic.
There are futuristic cars like that in Cyberpunk.
But I feel like in Cyberpunk, it's like they kind of tried to do both. I think they should have done one sort of uniform thing where it's like 80s inspired. It's retro. They should have done retro futuristic instead of retro and futuristic mashed side by side.
I feel like it felt correct to me when I played it. Okay. I think it's one of those things where when you play it, you kind of get a sense of the world.
Yeah.
And you might still have that problem, but you might not feel it in such a serious way.
Yeah.
We're kind of running out of time, but I think that Cyberpunk, I enjoyed it. But I think it'll be in about 10 years. It'll be considered a masterpiece.
I think it'll definitely have a cult. It'll get a cult status in a couple years.
Once they release,
especially once people like me play it and get the game of the year like on discount.
Once new consoles are considered standard,
and once they fix all the bugs.
Because what a lot of people don't really talk about is it's a very emotional game. You get attached.
I've heard the story is good.
You get attached to the characters. There's a lot of really sympathetic characters from all walks of life. Yeah. And I think it's the stories that happen in the world that make the game so impressive to me. Yeah. Like the bugs, the guns, whatever, whatever. They're all fine.
And it does also link back to our themes really quickly of tonight's episode, where it's like dealing with issues of the mind. The whole game story, minor spoiler alert, the game starts essentially with the main character realizing that he is becoming Johnny Silverhands due to an accident,
aka
Keanu Reeves, and it's like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, you're literally it's a death sentence, and he knows he's on borrowed
Your
time.
mind is being wiped with the consciousness of someone else.
Yeah, and so he's essentially dying a slow death, and that's what the game's about.
The whole game is motivated by emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what I think. It's such a lovely story. The bond between V and Silverhand changes as the game goes. They get closer together,
or apart,
depending on your choices.
Play it, yeah.
And it's like, and the other characters too, like they all have their own stories, their own motivations. You can have multiple relationships with the characters. Like, I think it was great.
Yeah. That's all about the time we have for tonight. We're technically over time.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Please like and share the Facebook page. You can catch our show in podcast form on iTunes, Spotify, Shout Engine, wherever you listen. Please support us any way you can. And thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
Adios, cousins. We'll be back next week.